Hey everyone, how's it going? This is my first live on YouTube, so we'll see how it goes. I'm about to do a podcast on comfort versus discomfort. I'm in my beautiful office with no windows, but actually I'm moving at the end of the month to a much better place, my own building, which is going to be great. So hopefully I'm going to be able to do some more dedicated podcasting and YouTubing there, and the background hopefully will look a little bit better. So bear with me as I get going on this podcast, and we start talking a little bit about parenting and comfort versus discomfort. Hey friends, we are going to talk parenting today and talk about the difference between comfort and discomfort in parenting.
You are listening to Head Shrinking, your answers to life, relationships, and daily living.
Hey friends, welcome to the Head Shrink Inc. podcast. So I am in my office today. I'm seeing some clients, and a snowpocalypse is about to hit. Apparently, it's funny. The weather forecast says, there's going to be 3 to 6 inches to a foot of snow, and so then everyone loses their minds and they go to the stores and they get water and they get food and they get bread, and I actually haven't done any of that. And I was just talking to my wife this morning. I was thinking, should we go get stuff? And we have a well, so I think the only thing we'd really need is water, because if the power goes out, then we have nothing to pump the well with. It has made me think about getting a hand pump. So when the EMP strike happens and there's no power throughout the nation, we'll still be able to get water. But until that happens, or until there's a threat of that, I probably won't get a hand pump. But we are not here to talk about snow today. I'm sure we'll survive, like the Midwest has survived. There's been a theme that has been coming up as I've worked with families or in couples this week. And it is interesting in my line of work, and I don't know if it's me or if it's a combination of me working with couples and families, but a lot of times there's themes that happen. And, one theme one week may be centered around protectiveness, or another theme another week may be centered around resentfulness. And an interesting theme has come up this week as I've worked with couples, and it's talking about comfort versus discomfort. And it's not even something I generally plan, but as I'm talking with parents and I'm talking to them about raising kids, and then I'm talking to couples about how they argue and how they fight with one another, it just seemed really appropriate this week. So I wanted to share a little bit about comfort versus discomfort, and I think how it affects parenting and how it potentially affects couples and relationships. So we all know what comfort is. I'm YouTube living this podcast episode, and my definition of comfort is I have a Starbucks, or it could fill in the blank. It could be any kind of coffee company, but a vanilla latte with half the syrup, and it brings comfort. I drink it, tasty. You drink that and it tastes good, it tastes great, and that's comfort. But the downside of that comfort is there's a consequence to it, right? Because it's a sugary drink, and if you don't do anything about the sugar, it goes on your hips. And now I'm a middle-aged dad, and so I definitely have a dad bod, and so I have to watch what I eat now more than I did when I was 20. But that's an example of comfort. What's another example of comfort? Well, I just got back from a 2-week vacation where we went on a cruise. My family, I, and 30 other relatives went on a cruise together. And then we came back, and then some of us went to Disney World. That's comfort all the way. But the downside of that comfort is there was money that was expended. So what's another comfortable thing? Some people like to sit by a pool in the sun and read, and that's what they define as comfort. Some people, you may have heard something called comfort food, right? So you go on Pinterest and you'll see all these luxurious meals that are made out of fatty, like salt, fat, chocolate, mocha, all that's all things that bring comfort to people. People love it. It makes them feel good about themselves. Or they just enjoy the taste of it, right? So there's all this stuff that our society does to make us comfortable. But I would suggest that there are downsides to comfort. Now I'm not suggesting that comfort is bad, but I want to get you thinking about what you do in your relationship with your significant other or with your kids. Does it lean towards comfort or does it lead towards discomfort? Okay, so let's talk about discomfort. One of the things that it's really hard for me to deal with is, and it's probably part of the reason why I work for myself. When I worked for a boss way back when, there would be that, hey, step into my office so we can chat. It's that unknown, and discomfort starts to come up. What does he want to chat about? Am I in trouble for something? Am I in trouble for this? And maybe you don't go there, but I tend to go there when someone wants to talk to me and they don't tell me what it's about. You have a child. So I have lots of kids, 7 to be exact. And you have to ground your kid for something. And you don't want to ground your kid, but well, I got to do it. It's the right thing to do as a parent. And so you ground your kid, and then you say you ground them for 5 days. And you're 2 days into the grounding and you see how things are miserable for them. There is a feeling of discomfort that comes in because we as parents love our kids and we want our kids to feel comfortable in life. And so then some parents will stop with the grounding and thinking they're teaching their kid like a lesson or something. And I do sometimes encourage parents to give grace with grounding, but I generally don't tell people to stop the grounding. But we stop grounding because we dislike the discomfort, or we think I don't want to be like my parents, which is an uncomfortable feeling sometimes for people. Think about it with your partner. With your partner, you avoid arguments because it's uncomfortable. So let's talk specifically about parenting. So I had a parent come in, and I mean it could be any parent. Like I talk to parents and they have a child that is out of control. And out of control could be they ask them to do something, the child says no, and then starts yelling and screaming when some type of consequence is put onto them. And so right there is the challenge for the parent, because then your kid's bringing you, like pushing back at you, and so you have a choice. You can either make your relationship with your kid comfortable, and by making it comfortable, you'll avoid conflict with your kid. You will give in to whatever they want. You will let them have whatever they want. That's comfortable. Comfortable, in my opinion, comfortable, that kind of being comfortable, creates dysfunction and creates pathology in relationships. Now, the uncomfortable thing to do in that instance with the kid would be to stick with the punishment, to provide more consequences if they're getting out of control, and to follow through on consequences and punishments that need to happen with your kids. That is not comfortable, but it's the thing that you need to do to teach your kid how to launch successfully. If you can't be uncomfortable with your kid and your parenting, generally speaking, you're not going to have a kid that launches successfully. I had 2 parents in here this last week, right in this room, right behind me on that couch, talking about their 20-year-olds who don't have jobs and who are just kind of lazing around the house. And as I talked with the parents more, they relayed stories to me of how situations came up, and instead of doing the uncomfortable thing, they went towards comfort. They didn't provide consequences. They didn't provide boundaries. And it's not like this just starts when they're a teenager. This starts when they're really young. This starts like in 3, 4, 5, and then it just doesn't get fixed, and the comfort stays there. And the idea like, oh, I don't want to hurt Jimmy, I don't want to hurt Susie, oh, they're my little baby, they can't handle life. Well, if you think about that, that like creates a bubble of comfort around them. And again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that you need to like kick your kid out and make him experience the world and not support them. That is not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is that there's incremental steps you need to help your child experience so that when they're 18, 19, 20, they are able to say, I need to go out on my own, or I'm going to college, I'm going to get a job, or rather than, I can't make it, mommy or daddy, please pay for my cell phone bill, please pay for my insurance, please pay for my car, please pay for this, this, and this. And when mom and dad step back and say, I'm not going to pay for that, and then your 20-year-old throws a tantrum or threatens to kill themselves, you're drawn back into that comfort again. And it is hard. I mean, the older your kid gets, the more difficult it gets to help them experience quote unquote discomfort. What does this look like in a marriage? Well, actually, let's go to blended family first. What this looks like in a blended family is if you have a mom and she's providing comfort to her bio children, and you have a stepdad that is not wanting to provide comfort to the bio children, you have a mom and dad that are going to be at odds. Now, granted, the stepdad potentially doesn't love the kid in the same way that the bio mom does, but you should not just discount the stepdad simply because he or she, the stepmom, wants to incorporate some discomfort in the kid's life. So the more comfort you bring into your kid's life, the more likely they're not going to be able to launch well. The more comfort you bring in to your marriage, and we'll talk about that in a minute, the more likely your marriage is not going to be successful. So what does that look like? So discomfort in marriage and comfort in marriage follow along the same path, the path. So I've had couples again in this room this week where a specific issue came up, and rather than address the issue, which is uncomfortable, they go to their corners of comfort, right? So here's how the pattern works. Spouse A says, I don't like it when this happens. Spouse B gets offended that spouse A says that they don't like it and makes a choice to shutting down and going away to a room. That's comfort. And the discomfort would be, you don't like this thing that I'm doing? Well, let's talk about it and try to work through it. Right? That's the discomfort. Now, maybe it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, and I started out the conversation like explaining what comfort is. It's sitting by a pool, it's going on a cruise. And so it perhaps is a little bit hard to think about it, but if you start viewing your relationship with your spouse or your relationship with your kids through the lens of, is this bringing me comfort or is this bringing me discomfort? You potentially can radically change how you do your parenting and how you do your relationship with your partner. Again, let's just go over it really quickly. If your kid has some kind of challenge that comes up and you don't want to deal with it because it's making you uncomfortable, that is the wrong way to go. Now, what I would also add is that being uncomfortable is a feeling, and being comfortable is also a feeling. And these are things that you can overcome. You can overcome your feelings on things. And so if you have your kid and they're saying, hey, I want to stay out till 11, and you say, no, I only want you to stay out till 10, and they start to throw a tantrum, there's your choice. You can either be comfortable and give in to what they wanted to do and not address it, or you can embrace that kind of discomfort and try to work with it through them. As a couple, how does that look again? As a couple, it looks where you may not see eye to eye with your spouse on something, or your spouse may say something that's hurtful to you. And you have a choice right there. You can either choose comfort and go away from them, sulk, feel sorry for yourself, have a pity party, and build up resentment, right? That's the downside of the comfort that you choose when you don't deal with issues with your spouse. Or You can choose discomfort and say, you know what, it hurt my feelings when you said this. Can we have a different way to talk about this? That's uncomfortable for people to do sometimes. But the outcome of something like that is much more beneficial than the outcome of feeling comfortable all the time in your relationship with your partner. Now, I've just talked about partner relationships and child and parent relationships. You can potentially expand that out to, relative relationships, to relationships with coworkers, relationships with bosses, relationships with strangers that you meet on the street. I mean, I would say the harder relationships, where it's going to be more difficult for you, definitely, is going to be in your intimate family relationships, right? And where it's even going to be really hard, and we talked about blended families briefly, that's where it's probably going to be the most difficult, because as a stepdad, when you have a step kid that's out of control, it could be really easy to avoid them because you want to be comfortable, right? The difficult part is embracing them and having a serious conversation with them, because that brings discomfort. I worked with a mom in this last 2 weeks, and she has a hard time with her stepdaughter. And hard time doesn't even, I'm just being kind by saying hard time. I could use a lot of adjectives. But she's having a difficult time in relating to her child. And so what she has chosen to do more often than not is simply to avoid. And so that's comfort. Avoiding is a way to be comfortable, and it's a way to protect yourself. Now, there are genuine problems in the relationship. There's antagonism that happens from both sides. But my challenge to her is, don't stay comfortable, because that young girl who's under the age of 11 is going to become a teenager, and it's just going to get worse. And so my encouragement to her was, do the thing that's uncomfortable so you can see the benefits of it when they're older and they're a teenager. And that is a hard thing to convince somebody to do, because people are just naturally wanting to protect themselves, and they naturally want to be comfortable. People don't want to work, they want to go on vacation. People want to have a life of ease. And the problem is, the life of ease makes you fat, makes you lazy, it sucks up your money. There's a lot of negatives to a life of ease, and there's a lot of negative to just wanting to be comfortable in relationships. So hopefully that's been helpful to you. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to email me at headshrinkinc@gmail.com. I just think I got an email from somebody just this morning suggesting an episode, and I'm going to be looking into that topic, and hopefully be doing that in the next couple weeks. But I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me today and tune in. We will be back in a few weeks with another episode. Take care. All right, thanks for watching. Hopefully this will be helpful. If you have any comments, comment below, and subscribe, share, all that stuff.